Hello everyone, my name's Paul Stevens, editor of Short Term Rentals, and welcome to this Rockstars 6.0 webinar on tackling the talent shortage, the path to recruiting and retaining hospitality superstars, sponsored by Price Labs and Minute. I'm the host for today's session, and here you can see some of the things that we're doing on Short Term Rentals, webinars, podcasts, video interviews, you name it, a lot. And now for a short video from one of our Rockstars series sponsors. This is revenue management tool Price Labs. So in terms of webinar guidelines, please keep your sound on mute and your camera off if you're not speaking today. All of the details will be posted in the chat by my colleagues Joe and Eloise, and please do post any questions you have there yourself throughout today's webinar. We'll have a discussion lasting roughly around 45 minutes before we can move on to the audience Q&A, and finally a recording will be sent round to everyone after the session. And now we have one more short video from our second Rockstars series sponsor. This is property monitoring company Minute.
Dear hosts and property managers, hosting can be difficult. We get it. Watching out for parties, making sure your guests have a wonderful stay, keeping neighbors happy, coordinating cleaning and security staff. We see all the work you do every day, and we want to help. Wouldn't it be great to have a co-host? Someone to welcome your guests when they arrive. Remind them about house rules when they're getting a bit too loud. Keep your home safe when they leave. We're Minute, the co-host that helps you care for your home, guests, and community. We come highly recommended. We're reliable and we're eager to help. So let us be your co-host today. With love, Minute.
So a big thank you to Price Labs and Minute for sponsoring this session and our Rockstars series. Let's kick things off though by introducing our Rockstars lineup for today. And we're going to kick off with Steve, please. Take it away, Steve.
Hi, I'm Steve Trover with Better Town and very happy to be here today.
Thank you very much, Steve. Next we have Amber.
Hi, I'm Erickson-Hurdle. I'm the founder of Employer Brand Central and also Erickson-Hurdle Consulting, and we do obviously branding.
Thank you very much, Amber. And finally, Kieron. Take it away.
Hey, my name's Kieron. I'm founder of EXP 101 and one of the owners and operators of Otolo, the hospitality community.
And I guess I should actually ask Kieron, that is probably the best background I've seen on any webinar. What is it?
This evening we have a launch party. So I'm in Soho at the moment. I've just scooted across to Soho to come and get myself set up in a little corner, ready to come and do this ahead of our party tonight.
Excellent. I'm not too far away from Soho, but we'll be chatting more very shortly. So thank you to all of our speakers today. Let's have a look at the context behind today's discussion as well. So in the wider landscape, here are 3 stories that we've covered recently about layoffs from operators in the short-term rental space, including Landing, Sonder and Avantstay just last week. In the last couple of months, if we turn to our next slide as well, Kasai has cut jobs in Mexico and Brazil, and San Francisco-based Wonderjourn also ceased operations in June. If you go on to our next slide, this coincides with extensive layoff rounds. A number of global tech firms that we're all familiar with, the likes of Meta and Twitter, the latter since it was taken over by its new CEO, Elon Musk. And finally, here's an introduction to some of our speakers as well. Kieron's Otolo launched courses to boost the hospitality recovery in London in March 2021. We'll be hearing from Kieron very soon. While Steve recently joined Amber's bombshell business podcast to discuss the best teams win. I believe there's also going to be a link in the comments very shortly. So let's just get into the nitty-gritty of the discussion. And Steve, you gave us a little bit of an introduction there to Better Talent, but could you just go into a little bit more depth and also why you set it up in the first place?
Absolutely. So Better Talent is a STR industry focused talent acquisition team. And we work on a subscription basis with our clients, and we do all of their hiring. So everything from if it's an operator, general manager on down to housekeeper, maintenance tech, any role. And we also do full-time, part-time, independent contractors, and even consultants recommendations. So we really help optimize any talent that a company uses in the space. We primarily work with vacation rental managers, short-term rental managers, as well as obviously supporting companies within the space. The reason why I started it, I'm a 25-year veteran of the vacation rental industry. And after selling my group of companies, really wanted to understand how I could make a big impact in the industry. And nobody was really addressing talent at that point. And so that was something we decided to focus on, that problem, and helping, drive people into the industry that have great talent, because I think that'll really grow and help the companies throughout the industry, but also retain talent. A lot of times people get burnout in this industry. So we try to help them find positions where they don't feel burnout and they feel like they're in a good spot. Because I think if we, keep talent here and continue to grow the pool of talent within the industry, we're going to grow the industry. And so that's why I became passionate about talent.
I mean, one of the things, we've got all three of you on this panel because I know how passionate you are about the industry as well. So I'm really looking forward to getting more into the discussion. But I also saw, Steve, that Better Talent describes itself as this subscription-based talent acquisition team as well. So I'm sure we can learn and understand a bit more about that. But also on top of that, what skill sets from your experience do you believe people in the short-term rental, vacation rental industry have, maybe on top of that, the hospitality industry in general?
Well, I think, probably the number one thing if you're in this industry is adaptability. It tends to attract people that like change because there's a lot of change in it. It's constantly evolving. Even though STR has been around for decades, it's still early stage relative to maybe even the rest of hospitality. For example, hotels and other types of lodging options are a lot more structured than we are. So it takes somebody that understands that can come in and adapt to the change that happens almost every day. And then just being really passionate about hospitality as a whole, wanting to provide a great guest experience is really important. As far as the skills, I mean, it runs the gamut in the sense that these companies have to do a lot of things really well, everything from housekeeping to maintenance to guest services to marketing to reservations to accounting. So they're really a bunch of different companies made up into one. And so it requires a broad array of skills to really operate well in this industry. So again, we need a lot of talent. Thank
you very much, Steve. And Amber, Steve, I know you and Steve work together on a couple of things as well, and Steve's raised some really interesting points there. You've got a number of brands that we can learn a little bit more about on the consulting side and with Employer Brand Central, but one of the big things that you mentioned within as part of your brand, if you like, is this employer brand. So could you explain to us exactly what this is and how does that help you attract the right people to your company at the end of the day?
Yeah, so employer branding is really about the branding and marketing of the entire employee continuum. So sometimes people think about it, and you might even find a definition online that says, oh, it's how you attract talent, but that's not true, because when you're thinking about marketing and branding and you're trying to gain market share, you're not only trying to gain market share, but then you retarget your customers. You're trying to get like a lifetime value from your customers. You need to retain your customers so that there's a much longer strategy in that customer experience. And so it's the same thing with employer branding. Yes, you want to attract the talent, but if you're not living what you've promised that talent on the inside, word's going to get out. And so you have to, again, attract and retain. You have to think about the entire employee journey all the way to the offboarding side of things. And what are they saying about you when they leave the company? And what does that mean for the team that's remaining? And so when you have a very solid employer brand, just like a solid external business brand, then you are strategically attracting a particular type of human that is going to vibe with your culture, with your values. They're going to be passionate about what it is that you're trying to accomplish in your mission and vision. And then you set up that experience for them so that they create relationships and they see where they fit into the big picture, and they're rewarded for moving the big picture forward, and they're being invested in so they can continue to grow. These are all things that come with employer branding that might have had different words in the past, but it has anything to do with what your employee thinks about you and what they're saying about you to their friends. That's your employer brand. Having a strong one helps you be more competitive because you have, I mean, we could talk about brands in the SDR, VR industry that are people want to work at because they know that they're going to be taken care of.
And well, hopefully we'll learn a little bit more about them if there's any names that you particularly want to bring up later in the session as well. But Steve also interestingly alluded to how, you know, full on this industry is, especially as we hear property managers, operators, and specifically that is also where we're seeing a lot of the layoffs in teams at the moment. But, you know, I'm wondering, and the same question really to you, but with it being a 24/7 industry, what skill sets are people looking for? What do they achieve from being in the industry?
Two things really bubble up for me. And the first one is needing competing priorities. I mean, if you're like any of us on this call, you don't want the same day twice. You don't even want the same morning as your same afternoon. And I think hospitality, especially vacation rental, offers that opportunity to have a different experience all throughout the day and every day. The other thing that comes to mind is just really teaching the value of teamwork and understanding the connectivity of different roles. And when you think about, like, if the housekeeper doesn't effectively do her job, laundry can't her or his job, laundry can't effectively do her or his job. And then it just keeps trickling down. Now you have problems in reservations. Now marketing has a branding problem because you're getting these bad reviews, and now you've got senior leadership involved. And so everyone has to play their part. And when you're talking about STRs, it's not like a hotel where you have maybe maximum 2 pools and a hot tub. I mean, Steve, how many pools did you have when you had All-Star?
Close to 400. So.
Yeah. Okay. And then you have to get your laundry to all these different places, not one hotel. And so that is, if you're not in it for the team, it's a no-go. It's a required skill that you have to learn in this industry.
Thank you very much, Amber. And again, I think it's interesting, you know, we were talking in the pre-call as well about how it's useful to have people with experience out of this sector. And Kieron, you come traditionally from outside of the short-term rental industry, but you do have a big hospitality background. Could you tell us a little bit about what Otolo actually does and sort of expand on what you're doing to help the industry in London?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Otolo is very simple. Otolo was built to serve those who serve others. That's it. So everybody who works within the industry, everybody's looking to care, everybody's looking to do a little bit more and to deliver an amazing experience. They need support to be able to do that. And that's what Otolo is built to do. We do it through many different ways. So we originally began as a European Social Fund backed system that delivers a mentoring program for those within the Greater London area. And that was built by a guy called James Lemon, who had an amazing vision and he really wanted to deliver on that. He's a really good guy. But he realized really quickly that actually it was bigger than that. It was bigger than what he could deliver. So we took on ownership 7 or 8 months ago now, and we've shaken it up. We've turned it around and we've really enhanced the mentoring program. So we will find incredible people who've got passion and who've got incredible stories and knowledge to share, who will deliver that to the next generation of people coming through. And it's the next generation of leaders, the next generation of servers, of general managers, whatever, anybody who's got a little bit of love for this industry that I adore because it's given me an amazing life. You know, we spoke yesterday, Paul. I'm a council estate kid. I grew up in a really tough environment. I was supposed to fundamentally get a job. That was best case scenario. Having a career that's brought joy to my heart was not the answer. Hospitality has done that, and it's given me the tools to be able to have a really cool life. And I want to pay that forward. Otolo is, there are four owners and founders now, and we all come from hospitality in different ways and different angles, from a recruitment perspective, from a caterer.com jobs board perspective, to my business partner, Chris, who we both were operators for 25 years plus. I left operations because I've got the knees of a 90-year-old and I'm just not built for it anymore. I had to change. I'm not a young man. I'm just not a young man anymore. So
I don't know about that, Kieron.
Here in Tennessee, we'd say that you have a hitch in your giddy up.
I would take that. I might put that on a business card. But yeah, we just wanted to find a way to be able to really contribute to the industry in some way that can help really generate and move it forward and drive it forward. So that's what we do. So we have this amazing mentoring program where we will pair you and partner you with somebody specifically to what you're looking for. What are you looking to develop? What skills and traits are you looking to enhance? We'll pick somebody to be able to help you do that. We've got some amazing workshops. We do events where we get 100 or so people together who actually, we've all been to those events where it's basically just a sales pitch. And I'll be honest with you, I think we've all got a little bit bored of those because you get to the point where you consider self-harming, and that's not a great place to be. We want to create events where we're just going to make people smile and where they can connect and build relationships. That is what Otolo is built to do, to absolutely elevate and just accentuate the joy that hospitality brings.
I think I mentioned this on like the first time that we spoke, Kieron, about how the sort of passion for this industry, hospitality in general, really like reverberates through the screen to you as well. And I know Otolo started off as being more like hotel focused, and you've expanded and diversified since. But so this probably gives you a unique insight into this next question, and it's how you see. What do hospitality sector employees have in common? This isn't something that's unique to short-term rentals or vacation rentals, but in general.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many skills, there's so many talents that we develop, and so many abilities that we're able to kind of accentuate and amplify. But probably the really key one is it's empathy. I think anybody who is built in hospitality is empathetic. They connect with somebody else and they're thinking about what is going to make that person smile. What do I need to do to understand how to make that person's day a little bit better? So hospitality, it teaches you how to ask amazing questions. The questions that will guide me towards being able to deliver you an extraordinary experience. That's probably one of the biggest things. But then there's so many talents, so many skills where you think multitasking. I mean, people say multitasking is a myth. It kind of is because you're just dividing your attention. But if you can do that and still deliver 2-3 amazing different projects at the same time, then you're going to be doing incredibly well. At the moment, I'm multitasking. I've got a team of 14 downstairs setting up for a launch party. We've done all the work ahead of schedule now. I now know that they're going to go away and deliver that and smash it. And at 5 o'clock, I'm going to walk downstairs when we're done here, and I'm just literally going to go and look like a rock star because they've done all the good work. That's what hospitality does. It teaches you those skills and those traits. The ability that falls within the average member of the team. There is no such thing, actually. No, that's bollocks. There's no such thing as an average member of a team. What there is incredible people who are able to multitask, who are able to build rapport really, really quickly. Because in hospitality, you get about 60 seconds to make that impression. Whether it's hotels, whether it's restaurants, whether it's nightclubs, doesn't matter. You get that first 60 seconds. And if you don't smash that, then immediately you set yourself up for a challenge. Best case scenario, if it goes really badly, you set yourself up for failure. And none of us are in the business of doing that. So building rapport really quickly, building connection, understanding what is driving somebody else's motivation, and then just kind of putting your own ego to one side and thinking, I'm just going to do what I need to do to make your experience today amazing. That's probably one of the biggest things in hospitality. And I imagine in short-term rentals, I imagine in hotels, all of that. That's the key.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Kieron. And I think the key point that we wanted to get out with this webinar as well is we want to reassure people who are tuning into this webinar, whether it's live or on demand later. And this is a very turbulent time economically and also for our industry. We're seeing companies laying people off, but we're also seeing as well this talent shortage, or however people would want to coin that. Steve, how do you perhaps view this? I don't know if talent shortage is even the word I want to use. Maybe you've got a better word for it. But how do you view this landscape in short-term rentals in comparison with other hospitality or travel or even other verticals?
Yeah, one of the things I think that is a misnomer is a lot of people think that the talent shortage or the shortage of people overall is due to the pandemic. While the pandemic, did change some things, demographically, we've got challenges in different countries of the world, right, where we're not growing our inventory of talent, if you will, through having babies, and that's we're seeing that shift. And so some of it is that in our industry, we've always had challenges with frontline workers. It's acute now, and the reason for that is that some of these markets, the only job you could have was a hospitality job. Well, now with everything going remote post-pandemic, that definitely made things more acute, where people in markets that are hard to fill, now those people can go find jobs remotely in other markets. And so we have even less talent in those hard to fill markets as we had before. So I think that's kind of two of the things that are different for our industry. And then overall, there is a shift in the industry for people coming from other parts of hospitality into vacation rentals. So I think that's actually helping the industry as the exposure to the market. It's now such a top of mind lodging. That's one thing that COVID actually helped the industry in. And so you're seeing more people consider having a career in this industry, which they didn't before as often. So so I think there's, even though there certainly is a shortage, there's more people interested in this industry than there ever has been. So I would question whether that is actually a talent shortage today.
And we hear a lot about the layoffs and sort of the darker side of it as well. But actually, are you able to kind of provide any insight into how many jobs and roles there are currently within the industry? And are there any particular roles or something that urgently need to be filled, would you say?
Absolutely. So the layoffs that we're seeing are largely venture-backed or publicly traded companies. They're the larger businesses, and they make wholesale job cuts when they're not making their numbers. What we're not seeing is a slowdown or any job cuts across the smaller companies within the sector. And when I say small, it could be a large scale vacation rental management company. They're not cutting jobs either. Maybe some seasonal work, obviously off and on, but we're not seeing a slowdown in any way, shape, or form. One of the biggest needs in this industry is general managers or director of ops, however you want to look at it. A lot of times the founder of an STR gets to a point where they really want to scale the business, or they did scale the business. They were still the day-to-day operator, and they never got that general manager. And so consequently, unlike the hotel industry, which is awash with general managers, there just aren't enough operators in leadership in our industry. And so because so many times the leader or the founder of the company is that for a long period of time. And so that's a common job. Revenue management is something now, pricing, that we get a lot of demand for, and there's frankly just not a lot of people that know that really, really well. And so that's a high demand position. And then business development, inventory growth. That's definitely a big piece of it as well. So really across the board, there's demand. And I mean, at any given time, we have hundreds of jobs openings available, but we're filling jobs pretty rapidly these days. And it's really great to see new talent coming into the space because of it. So.
Could I ask a question, Steve?
Yeah.
You said that STR isn't struggling to draw people in, and more and more people come in from different areas of hospitality. What are you doing to tell the story? What are you doing to persuade people that she should come to you? Because we're in a battle with retail right now in the UK, full stop. But if you guys are absolutely nailing it, what are you doing so well?
Yeah, let me back up to say we may be on the mid to high level positions, but the front line is definitely a struggle. So I don't want to say that that's not the case. And we absolutely are fighting with retail and everybody else for that level of talent. That said, a big part of why I partner with Erickson-Hurdle and Employer Brand Central is really attracting through employer branding, like she was talking about before, telling the story. And so we're telling the story of why somebody would want to work in this industry. Well, why would you want to work in this industry? Well, it has a lot of change. There's a lot of problems to solve. There's a lot of fun new things to do. It's not, tried and true, stale and old, right? So there's exciting things. So we attract them that way, but also telling the story of the individual companies. Most companies, when they go to market for talent, they really don't talk about themselves very much. They actually say, here's what you're going to do, here's how much you're going to get paid. And so we really need to help the potential applicant early that's going to move. Why would they want to work for you? What are your core values as a company? What are you doing? What does your growth look like? Get people excited. So that's a big part of what we do to attract talent. We also don't just post and pray. And what I mean by that is it's not just throw an ad on Indeed or one of the jobs boards. It's be really, really aggressive. And so we have a multi-channel marketing effort to get that message across. So
thank you, Steve. Yeah, please, Amber,
I just
go.
Want to add on to that. I mean, there are so many things, and I obviously agree with the demographic issue, and even just the demographic issue in some of the markets, because they're high-end luxury markets and the people on the front line can't even afford to live there. So now you've got, like in California, gas prices are $7 a gallon, to go 10 miles, it's an hour in your car burning that gas. Like there's challenges. So there's that. But if we take a really big step back and look at holistically what we're dealing with, we have a third of the talent population retiring. So you've got baby boomers out the door. All of that historical knowledge, all of that leadership skill, all of that life skills, that empathy that Kieron is talking about that they've developed over the years, out the door. There's not enough of us Gen Xers to backfill those positions. And we've been on the planet long enough now to know a thing or two. And not to say, my beloved millennials, Paul, I know you're probably one of them.
I'm just about.
That you're unworthy of these jobs. The fact of the matter is you just haven't been on the planet long enough to have the same level of experience and leadership. So you're leading each other. Now you're leading Gen Z, who has different ideas of how they want to do life, different ideas of how they want to show up and what their work experience is and how that's going to integrate with the rest of their lives. And so when the entire system is crumbling, when the institutional structure is crumbling, and COVID really facilitated a lot of that, you have to start looking differently at how you solve for the new challenges. So while I created Erickson-Hurdle Consulting a decade ago, it's not a privilege anymore. Like if you can't afford my team on retainer, then you're dead in the water. So we're like, okay, well, how do we back up and democratize this a little bit? Let's also we've done subscription before with leadership and membership and that sort of thing. So we're like, how can we teach a small business owner who does not have a huge budget for this, who's dealing with the cost of their tech stack, who's dealing with the cost of recruiting, who's dealing with the cost of payroll and everything that's coming at them, and supply chain issues and blah, blah, blah. How do we reduce the friction so that they are able to tell the story of the industry? How are they able to tell the story of their company? And most importantly, guys, listen to this. What's in it for me? Your same sales tactics are your recruiting tactics and your retention tactics. You have to constantly remind the people who work for you why they choose to work for you, why they want to stay with you. And so we just, we put a simple, affordable subscription together. So you log into the hub, we put your whole strategy together, we point you in the right direction. You get in the hub, we tell you what to pull in terms of the resources that you need. And now you have a strategy, you have tactics, you have repeatable processes, and you have tools to empower our beloved millennials and Gen Zs who maybe might not have the experience of how to whip this stuff up themselves. We're just handing it to them and giving them the training, which, by the way, recognition and professional development are the two biggest retention tactics for 2023. And so if you don't have those in your employer brand strategy, you own. You don't get to play.
I know Kieron has something very insightful to add. I'll come to you very shortly, Kieron, on the millennial Gen Z. I'll be particularly interested to hear that, as I'm thinking a year or two inside millennial, so I'm not making anyone feel too old. But Amber, how do you think the maybe smaller businesses who are needing to hire or who are hiring, how are they viewing this current landscape as opposed to maybe a big property manager or a big PMS or tech supplier?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll just go back to what Steve said. If you're funded, then this is what happens a lot. Small business, big business, doesn't matter. You get this money, there's an expectation that you scale the business so you could go for your second round, your third round, whatever. And so you hire up, but you don't really come up with the strategy of where these people are going to take you. You don't have the layers of leadership in place for those people to be nurtured and pointed in the same direction. And so there's problems and coagulations on the bigger companies. When you get to the smaller companies, really cash flow is determining when you can hire. And so if you don't have the money to sustain a salary, you're not hiring. So now you've got people who are working harder, doing more with less. You're trying to hire for the next person, but at least you're not putting yourself in a position where you don't have a plan for those people and you're not having to lay them off in masses like we've been witnessing lately. So the challenge and the solution, I think, for the smaller business is find what makes you valuable as an employer. So me, as an example, for 10 years, I've been fully remote. I'm super flexible. I employ mostly mothers who can go take their kid to the doctor and not even tell me that they're going, because why do I care? The work's getting done. And so can I pay what a Meta can pay? No. Do I have the benefits that a Starbucks has? Because that's who you're competing with. I can go up the road to Starbucks. I could get a part-time job, get paid well hourly, and get benefits just working part-time. What can you do to make me not go to Starbucks? What is it that you offer me and my peers? And sometimes I love that DEI has now added the B on the end, because a sense of belonging, especially for Gen Z, and I can't wait to hear Kieron's take on this, is critical. I want to feel seen. I want to feel valued, and I want to feel like I care about the people that I work with. And if you create that environment, Starbucks isn't looking so good.
Well, let's go to Kieron, actually, because I know Kieron, you said something again in our pre-call, something really interesting. I think will resonate with our audience today. How do you think this talent shortage, how does it tally with what you think employees in the hospitality sector are viewed as, whether that's in schools or by governments? And how does that tally with the kind of growing Gen Z millennials that we've discussed?
This is the thing that makes me angry, because this industry, these people are viewed as being second class. They're viewed as being low skilled, untalented people. And it's a mission a thing that's been said by people in our own government, and people hear that, and the general public hear that, and the mum and dads hear that. And then you've got to get past that test when little Johnny goes and says, I'm going to go and work in the restaurant, and mum kind of goes, no, I don't think you are. Actually, you're going to have a proper job. I lose count of how many people over the years have told me that they're going to have a proper job at some point, and I sit down with parents and talk to them and tell them that this is a proper job. This can do this. I'm going to talk to them about what it can do for you. The reality is Gen Z and millennials, they are ahead of us. I'm with you. I'm a Gen Xer. We were soldiers. We were left to our own devices. We were just latchkey, go and do your own thing. And we see ourselves as tough. But the reality is, this next generation, they're the tough ones, because they know what they're willing to accept. They know their value, they know their purpose, and they know what is important to them. And they know, more importantly, what they will not accept. And that is a wonderful thing. They get laughed at and called snowflakes for being soft and weak. It's not soft, it's not weak, it's incredibly strong. To know your value at that age, I wish I did when I was their age. I would have been a lot more successful a lot sooner. I think back to the time when I was like 21, and I was telling you, I had a job interview, and somebody offered me the job after this long process, and they said, we'd love to give you the job. The only thing that needs to happen is you need to cut your hair. I used to have long hair down my back and a nose ring and all sorts. You got to cut your hair, and you've got to change yourself as a person. Now, most people at that point would have done that. I'm very lucky. I was brought up by a mum who made me strong, comfortable in myself. And I said, thanks, no thanks. I'm not going to do that. The majority of people at that point would have done it. These kids today, they wouldn't even entertain it. They wouldn't even accept it. And like I think you said yesterday, cancel culture would kick in at that point, because you don't get to do that. So knowing that they know their value, knowing that they know their purpose, all that does is that forces us as employers to work harder at knowing our own purpose and knowing our own values. And as Amber said, tell the story, share that. There are some amazing people out there doing it. Eden Lock Hotels in the UK do it beautifully across their social media. They tell the story of who they are as a brand, as a business. That's amazing. Dishoom is a fabulous restaurant in this country. They are just legendary because they've nailed the values of their business. And more importantly, they expel and they exude the culture of their business through every single touch point. That's what millennials and Gen Z are looking for. They want to feel that it means something. They want to feel that it matters. And if it doesn't feel like it matters, you know what? They're going to go to somebody else who's going to give them that feeling. Amber's absolutely right. They will just keep on walking to the next person. So we need to toughen up. They don't need to toughen up. We need to toughen up and start telling better stories about why our industry is amazing. Because it is amazing. It's tough, it's hard, it's challenging, you know, but the reality is it will give you an amazing life if you love it. And nobody comes to hospitality. Nobody spends 20 odd years plus in this industry if you don't love it. Of course you don't, because, well, it can be challenging. But if you embrace that challenge and you embrace the skills and the teaching and training that you're going to be given, then you can be massively successful. And Amber, you talked about Gen X leaving the workforce. You're absolutely right, but that's where they become so important as mentors to the next generation, and sharing as much of that knowledge, as much of that information that they have just sucked up and absorbed over the years of their career. The idea that we're going to let that just walk out of the door and never think about it again is insanity. We need to find every way possible of just drawing that from them and then embedding it in that next generation. That is how we will win. And by God, we have to win. It's not a choice.
And just to add on to that, you gave some great examples in the UK of successful businesses. And the thing that puzzles my brain, and I think of branding holistically, as you have really strong personal brands that are leading the employer brand. And then the employer brand, when you have happy employees, you have happy customers. So if you think about how much money you're spending to acquire market share, why would you, so you have a brand promise, or in theory, you have a brand promise, or you kind of have an idea of what it is that you're going to deliver to your customers. And every single human who works for you is responsible for delivering that brand promise. So why would you not double down on your brand ambassadors, who that's what they do all day, every day, is obsess over delivering greatness to your customers? Why would you not pour into them if you are expectant of them to pour into your guests or your homeowners or whoever?
Love the ones you've got. If you love the ones you've got, you inspire them, you keep them to stay. It's so much easier than going out and hiring new people. Inspire your people to stay and then bring their friends, bring their family, bring that next element.
Friends.
That's the answer. That's how we win.
And Amber, I mean, again, you raised some really important points there. I totally agree with everything you say as well. But yeah, you focusing on like the employer brands, the value proposition as well. How can the people who are tuning into this session today, for example, on the on-demand recording, how can they position themselves and keep their personal brand strong when they're in front of other influential people in the industry and they're trying to get jobs?
This industry in particular is unlike anything I've ever seen. And I work in hotel, I work in restaurant, travel, tourism, entertainment, construction, real estate. No one shows up on LinkedIn the way that the STR industry shows up. It's like the whole water cooler for the entire industry. So my first piece of advice would be get on LinkedIn. Like, if you don't do TikTok and all that kind of stuff, cool, get on LinkedIn. Now, once you're on LinkedIn, be very mindful about what you're posting about. Pick like 3, maybe 4 topics that you're going to be a SME, a subject matter expert, and be very consistent so people can anticipate and kind of know what to look for and know how to engage with you. That's also going to position you as an expert. So if you're looking for a job, a very quick scroll through your activity is going to be like, this person knows what they're talking about. You can go and look at a person's activity. You can filter it by exactly what they posted or how they've commented. The social media karma of a comment on LinkedIn is like 10 times other social media channels. So don't just give a thoughtful comment and participate in the conversation. And now that's going to populate other people. The more you, and don't be spammy and direct message people and be like, I got a deal for you. Like, don't do that, but just say like, hey, I saw this like yesterday. I got a bunch of things after something I posted. People wanted to privately share with me what it meant to them because they weren't wanting to talk about it in public. All of those direct messages that are coming through are now putting me in those people's feeds because it's telling LinkedIn they care about what she has to say. They messaged her, she messaged them back. They know each other. They should be in each other's feeds. So you're wanting to amplify your influence and you're wanting to streamline what it is that you're a SME on. And when you establish that, really, I love Jeff Bezos' definition of personal branding. It's what other people are saying about you when you're not in the room. And that, if you get it right, and if what people are saying about you is in alignment with who you genuinely are and how you genuinely show up and in service to other people, you will always attract the right people and opportunities. Great examples of this are Annie and Alex, the podcast. Lauren Madewell was not even on LinkedIn a year ago. Check her out now. These are all United States folks. I'm trying to think of who might be in the UK that I could use as an example, but just really strong people have been like, all right, I'm getting myself out there. This is the flag that I'm placing, and they've blown up and their careers have been extraordinary in a year.
Yeah. And talking of careers blowing up as well, I mean, Kieron, what initiatives do you see out there? You specifically mentioned mentoring as well, but what initiatives are there out there for people, I guess, wherever you are in the world, to find these opportunities or find things that are going to add those values for you to work in this sector?
Well, I mean, in the UK, there's a whole load of people doing amazing things. You've got a campaign called Hospitality Rising, which is basically it's an advertising campaign to tell people how great this career is, this industry is, and it is, and it's great. We need to do a little bit of work in the background to actually kind of really cement the fact that it is great, and we need to build the cultures of some of the businesses, because if I'm honest, there are some businesses in this country who are culturally bankrupt and they're not delivering for their team, they're not delivering for their guests. But Hospitality Rising do an amazing job of doing that. You've got UK Hospitality, you've got the IOH Institute of Hospitality. There's a whole lot of people doing really cool stuff, and what they need to do, genuinely, what they need to do better is they need to come together and stop fighting in their own little corners and silos of the world and thinking, I'm going to fight my battle. Actually, let's fight the battle together, because the battle we're fighting is not against other hospitality businesses. It's not casual dining against hotels. It's not hotels against bars. No. We're fighting against retail. We're fighting against Amazon. We're fighting against logistics centers who are just paying people pretty good wages to go and do a job that doesn't really require that much thought power. It doesn't really require that much time and effort and energy, and they could just come in and do it. So there's a huge amount of people out there doing really cool stuff. They need to come together. And I think you think about, we talked about the challenge. The challenge is a global challenge. It's very easy to get caught up in your corner of the world and think that we've got it worse than everybody else. But I speak to a lot of people all over the world. At Otolo, we've got 4,000 community members across the world, South Africa, all across Europe, some in the US, and they all talk about the same challenges. So maybe as a collective, as an industry, as a global industry, and that's because that's one of the real joys of our industry. We are a global industry where I develop my skills in Nottingham at the home of Robin Hood, and then I build these skills, and then I can go to, maybe I go to Nashville and go and spend some time and work in Nashville, and I bring the skills that I've developed here and I go and put them in Nashville, or I go to Florida, I go to New York, I go to anywhere in the world, and we can do that. But we need to do better at sharing the stories and actually connecting with individuals. And that's where community comes in. Community is absolutely key. We are one big community. So we need to come together. We need to kind of help each other. We need to support one another. And we need to accept that our fight is not with each other. It's really not. Our fight is with retail. It is with the Amazons of the world. So let's unify and let's put it in one single call to action that says we will win. And we absolutely will win, because it's full of rock stars. This industry is full of rock stars. Steve's an amazing dude.
You've got some good branding for our webinar there. Okay, I'm not sure why Kieron. Are you back, Kieron? Oh, okay, hopefully we'll come back to Kieron before we end. This thing is making a really good point as well.
There's so much we can do. There is so much we can do, but we just have to come together.
There we go. You
It's
sort of
fine.
paused in
I'm
the
back.
middle, but I think we got your point, Kieron. Steve, talking of community there as well, and you've heard what Amber said as well. What are the main ways that people?
So you missed a full rant.
Steve, what are the main ways that people can be getting themselves out in front of these difference makers as well? Is how much of a role does social media play nowadays?
There's no question that social plays a big role, and Amber mentioned LinkedIn, and 100% agree with everything she said there. I can't tell you how many times I go on somebody's LinkedIn profile and they really are not telling their story. They're not, they might have kind of the laundry list of things that they've done, but I want to know what you're passionate about. Like, what do you really want to do in this industry? And I want to quickly be able to ascertain that when I hit your profile. Same thing goes with your CV, with your resume. Make sure that that is absolutely speaking to what you really want to accomplish, that you are passionate. If you could take a little bit of Kieron's passion and put it in a resume or on your LinkedIn profile, you're going to be in a good shape, right? And so making sure that's well, setting up job alerts with LinkedIn, Indeed, any of the jobs boards, bettertalent.com. We have a jobs board, over 100 jobs at any given time. You can sign up for alerts there. You can follow us on LinkedIn. So there's a number of different ways of getting in front of those people, but making sure that when you do, that you are just making sure that they understand that you want to be a part of the solution, that you really can bring what they need and are excited and interested to be in this space, because that really resonates with employers. One thing we don't do on our platform, we don't sell applicants. We don't call our clients and say, you really need to hire Mike for whatever reason. We need you to do that, meaning you've got to be able to articulate your value proposition as an individual. And I've listened to, I don't know how many of Amber's podcasts about your own branding, but really focusing on that is key. Not just applying for jobs haphazardly. Making sure you tell your story is key. But be aggressive, just like you would in any, like if you were in sales, you're going to sell yourself. You got to do this. And I know not everybody's cut out for sales. In this scenario, if you want to find the best spot for you, you've got to be good at that, though. So you just got to do it for that period of time until you find that place for you. So
And you've got to put yourself out there. And as the resident estrogen on this call, let me just speak to you women.
Yes, please.
Put yourself out there. A man is going to put himself out there if he thinks he might know what to do. You don't have to 100% be prepared to put yourself out there. Apply to give a breakout session at any of the conferences. I mean, there's amazing, like I know Damian Sheridan and Scale Rentals, they're about to, I think they're in Paris and Italy, and they were just in Spain. They were just in Miami. We were there. Get in front of people, start talking about with audiences, get on podcasts, put a podcast sheet together, be an expert. When it's good for you and it's good for the company who hires you. And not just if you're in sales. There's so many revenue managers who are on podcasts, and that elevates the companies that they work for because they're seen as experts. Well, if this company employs experts, then I can go learn from them and I can grow in my career. So it's good for everybody. It's good for the business brand. It's good for the employer brand. It's good for the individual personal brand.
Thank you for that, Amber. And whether that is Amber or Steve who answers this next question as well, Steve, I think it was who said earlier that the pandemic wasn't necessarily the cause of this talent shortage, but certainly aggravated it. How do you see then, what ways can we actually bridge this talent shortage moving forward? Whether that's Amber or Steve who wants to come in on that.
I'll speak to it first. I'm sure Amber has some things to say as well, but I think of it broadly in the sense that, historically, most of the vacation rental management companies or STR companies looked at full-time employees. You've got to have full-time, part-time, independent contractors, VAs, maybe it's even a consultant. And, we talked about revenue management. A lot of companies don't need a full-time revenue manager yet. And so working with a mix of talent that makes up your total talent, right? And so we call it the people stack. So everybody's got a software stack, if you will, all the different softwares that you use. But your people stack is that mix of all of those different types of talent. And today, a modern STR company is going to have pretty much all of those in the mix to have the most optimized approach. That's part of why we designed our company as a subscription model as opposed to a transactional approach to talent, because I don't want to be selling you full-time employees when you don't need that. And sometimes you don't. You need a part-timer, you need a seasonal, you need a contractor. And so I think that's a part of it. And then obviously being aggressive. I can't tell you how many times I get on a Zoom with somebody and the first thing I ask is, well, okay, you have a talent shortage. How are you attracting talent? And they say, well, we put it out on Indeed. And that's it. And I describe that like if you had a STR company and all you did was put it out on Airbnb. You had no direct to consumer, you weren't on Verbo, you weren't on other channels, you were doing no email marketing. That's pretty much what most companies are doing today. They're just relying on one channel, maybe a couple, maybe they throw a little social. When we go to market on behalf of our clients, we do a range of things to attract talent. If this is a talent war, like Kieron says, we got to win it. Well, the only way to win a war is to be aggressive. You got to be getting out there everywhere you can and exposing your opportunity to as much talent as possible. And that's a big part of why we do what we do at Better Talent. So,
thank you, Steve. And Amber, would you concur with that?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously agree with everything he just said, especially the people stack side of things is you have to be creative. And then the truth of the matter is, even some of these larger companies that you're competing with, they're really sloppy in their people operations. I mean, just sloppy. It's haphazard. You know, they put something out on Indeed or LinkedIn, they bring them in, they show them where the office supplies are and wish them the best of luck. And that's the onboarding experience, which is why 30% leave within the first 90 days. They're not doing anything to engage them. So it's really about, you know, what is, are we going to be strategic about likely our number one investment, our number one cost on our P&L? And if we are, then I want everybody to just take notes. These are the 4 areas you have to focus on in order to compete for this kind of talent and to keep your talent. And the first one is attract. Obviously, the easy button is just to hire better talent and they do it for you. But if you want to go through the trouble and the consistency of fully putting together a talent attraction marketing plan and making sure that you equip your team to, you know, kind of poach from other companies and that sort of thing and have a referral program, you need attract. That's the first section of our employer brand loop. Then you need onboard. So I asked a customer, that's a bigger customer, well, when do you have your onboard touch points? And I was thinking I was going to hear like 1 week, 30 days. And it actually, they're like, yeah, about 1 week. And then we do a 90 days. And I'm like, so when they're ready to walk out the door is when you're checking in with them. You need to have a very structured onboarding experience for them so that they feel like they're winning and they have quick wins immediately where they can immediately see where they fit into the bigger picture. So the second section is onboard. The third section is the meatiest part. It's engage. And we don't have time to cover what's all in that, but it's all the things: communication, recognition, professional development, all that kind of stuff. That's all the majority. And then you have to have the offboard. Because do I keep my benefits? How long do I keep my benefits for? When do those get turned off? Like, when do I lose, you know, access to my email? How's the team going to divvy up my responsibilities so they don't get burnt out and want to walk out because now they're doing too much? Do you have an alumni program? Is there something that you want me to do, like an exit interview? How can we gain some new insights from understanding why you left? There's some roles that just based on the type of person that they attract, you're going to have a higher turnover. You have to understand your numbers and your data and understand, like, this isn't acceptable for us, for our industry. I mean, retail turnover, like, you can't compare it to tech. You just can't. And so you have to understand that whole life cycle and have strategies in each of them. So again, I want everybody to get this part. You have your attract, you have onboard, you have engage, and you have offboard.
Thank you very much, Amber. That's some really good points there as well. We have just got one question in the Q&A function, so I want to direct this to Kieron just before we close off the session. So I hope you're ready, Kieron, and you can hear us. It's a question from Meredith Tenahan, and it says, Steve touched on talent needs, including specialties of operations and pricing strategy. Do you see the same across the pond? despite typical value propositioning the panel mentioned, how can an American with these strengths best present as a candidate for a UK company, especially if needing a visa?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough at the moment. I'm not going to lie. I think we've been through a weird time in the last few years when it comes to thinking about workers from outside of this country. I think one of the things that most people within the industry recognise, we've got 132,000 jobs sitting open in hospitality right now. So find somebody who can sponsor you, find somebody who can work with you, find somebody who is willing to kind of to share their knowledge and share their expertise to navigate that system, because it's not an easy system by any stretch of the imagination. I think from the value of the value proposition of this industry, that's kind of, we as an industry, we're looking and we recognize actually that we need to do more, we need to do better. And looking at the kind of the way we've always worked, the way we've always operated isn't going to get things done anymore. I think Steve touched on it there as I was kind of cutting off, that we need to change the way that the way that we're operating with jobs, the way we're thinking about jobs. So thinking about how you're going to add to that creatively and find that employer who's going to help you and support you through that visa process is really key. I think from touching on kind of what Amber and Steve both talked about as well, it's kind of, we as an industry need to change the way that we're thinking about jobs within our industry. You know, we go through times of thinking you've got to be, mums are no good to me, people who only want to work part-time are no good to me. Well, actually, all of that has changed now drastically. And if you can find a way of finding an employer who you can tell your story to and you can connect with, then you stand a really good chance of getting them to take you on board. Meredith, maybe drop me an email and I'll give you a better answer, I think, because I'm on a street in Soho and it's weird. But drop me an email, Kieron@myotolo.com, and I will happily have a conversation with you.
We'll make sure we connect both of you. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's, we as an industry, we are looking for people to come out from outside our country, and we recognise that there's a huge amount of incredibly talented people who've got a huge amount to offer to this industry from outside and from across the globe. So we're working hard to really leverage that. We've got UK Hospitality looking to improve the work visa situation to make it easier and smoother. I think we've got 4 different bodies right now arguing that with the government. So it'll get easier by some stretch. It's just not there yet.
Thank you very much, Kieron. And that's probably the perfect way to conclude today's discussion. I want to say a big thank you to Steve, to Amber, to Kieron, all of our fantastic contributors today. We've just got a couple of slides to run through quickly before we finish as well. So we are back for our final short-term rentals webinar of 2022 on Tuesday, the 13th of December, same time, 4 p.m. GMT, for our 2023 trend session ahead of the publication of our annual predictions piece. So do join us then, and you can sign up in the chat as well. Tickets are now available as well for our Recharge event in Lisbon, as we bring together urban innovators at the cutting edge of hospitality, real estate and living. It takes place on the 23rd and 24th of January 2023. So I hope you can join us there.
My birthday.
Is it? Oh, okay, excellent. Even more reason for you to join us in Lisbon, Kieron. For opportunities to work with us, please do contact my colleague Katie, whose details are on the screen for you now. Big thank you again to Price Labs and Minute for sponsoring our Rockstars series and session. Going to keep the session open for just another 2 minutes, so if you want to jot down any of the details in today's chat. Do contact us via our various channels. I think they're just going to appear very shortly for you on screen now. But otherwise, a big thank you again to our speakers, to everyone who tuned in, and we'll see you all very soon. Thank you very much, everyone.